All right, it's Tuesday here on the Eternal Chronicles. I am Christian, your humble chronicler, your humble host, your humble painter. I'm not so humble. Humble's a misnomer, I suppose. So, how's everybody doing? I hope everyone's having a decent Tuesday. It snowed here yesterday. That was exciting. The snow's pretty much all melted away now, and we're sort of back to typical fall weather. That's to be expected here. Let's say hello, 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 hello. Ooh, look at that, Adeptus Mechanicus. Something was that guy got two faces? I don't know. So we're just rolling along here with Novembork. I am thoroughly devoting this month to painting these Rogue Trader models and getting this stuff done so that I can start making cool little fun little narrative battle reports with all these Rogue Trader guys that I've got. So my orcs and my human pirates and TBA, Space Marines, Squats, Eldar, whatever else. Because that's really what there was in the Rogue Trader back then. There wasn't, like today we have what? On a 16, 17, 18 codexes. I believe that there were the last edition that I played, how many codexes did we have in 8th edition? Not including like supplementary codex. Let's count Space Marines as 1. So if we count Space Marines as, let's count Space Marines as 4. Let's count Space Marines as 5. Wait, Grey Knights, that's 6. Okay, so I don't know. I have no idea how many codexes or how many armies there are in the current version of 40k. But back in Rogue Trader, there were like 4 or 5. You basically had the Imperium, who was all one sort of amalgamous thing, although they did eventually sort of break them off into Space Marines, Imperial Guard. And then you had Squats, so that's 2. What count Imperium is 2? Just because there's Imperial Guard and Space Marines. Imperial Guard, Space Marines, Squats, Eldar, Orcs, kind of Tyranids. I'm talking about like straight out of the Race of Rogue Trader book. You would have later on you'd have Gene Stealer cults, Tyranids. Marines got broken up. Marines didn't get broken up. You got Space Wolves at the very end there, Rogue Trader, and then you got Space Wolves again at the very beginning of 2nd edition because they basically wrote that all at the same time. So we're talking like 5 factions in 40k in the beginning, and not really even 5 factions, 4 or 5. Depending on how you looked at it, but because there weren't really factions. And if I'm gonna go over here to show you this. Oh, there it is. Oh, that just happens to be set on the Inquisition. La-di-da-di-dee, eh? Because that's what I'm doing today. So if you go, this is the Age of the Imperium. So this is essentially the lore. So the lore as it is written here, and there is our blessed Space Emperor, who sits on his golden throne, and is fed 1,000 psychers a day to power the throne, in order to power the Astronomicon. A lot of this stuff kind of gets lost in the modern lore. Like we don't really talk much about the Astronomicon. Like, what is the Astronomicon? It's a giant choir. It's like 1 million strong choir of psychers who are constantly sending out a psychic beacon, focused through the Emperor, focused through the Golden Throne. And that's how all navigation by the Imperium is done. They basically figure out where the Astronomicon is coming from, and then they're able to plot their position in the galaxy in relation to Terra, which is where the Astronomicon emits from. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really read. I should read the lore in the 9th edition 40k rulebook. I kind of stopped reading the lore in 40k rulebooks probably around 6th or 7th edition because it was just becoming very repetitive and becoming a lot of sort of the same thing. The Imperium is beset on all sides by enemies, great and small, yada, yada, yada. And it sort of downplays some of the more dirty aspects of the Imperium, like the fact that the Emperor is a psyker, or is fed the souls of 1,000 psychers. And there are these black ships that go around the galaxy that are crewed by the Sisters of Silence and the Inquisition and the Adeptus Psychanica, or whatever it's called, Adeptus I don't know. And they go to planets and they harvest psychers, and any psyker that's deemed sort of trainable or adaptable could be given a sanctioning by the let's put the Emperor there so you can take a look at that beautiful piece of artwork. Would be given become a sanctioned psyker, or you might be assigned to do some other thing, or you might just be executed for being a mutant on the spot. They might be like, yeah, that one's too dangerous, cap them. Or if you're not, then what they'll do is they'll take you to Terra and feed you to the Emperor, feed you to the Golden Throne. Good times. So if you didn't know that it takes the souls of 1,000 psychers essentially being fed to the Emperor to keep him alive daily, now you do. But what am I doing today? Because we're going to talk about Rogue Trader as we go on, and I'm going to talk about sort of my experience with Rogue Trader, because Rogue Trader was my entry into the Warhammer game. Wasn't really my entry into the miniature painting. Like, I was painting miniatures before, but not really as a hobby, more just a pastime. So yeah, let's just say Rogue Trader was my entry into this hobby that I'm now sitting here. Rogue Trader came out in '88, so I'm sitting here 32 years later, still enjoying this hobby, still talking about it, still bubbling with people. Yeah, you can see my snotlings there. I was working on my snotling bases today, because essentially I will base them before I paint the actual snotlings. But we'll get back to that. Let's talk about let's talk about the hobby. Let's talk about the Inquisition. So here we have. Let's see if I can find where the lore starts for it. It starts way back here. And this really was the foundational lore. There's a lot of stuff here where it leaves huge holes and doesn't really explain things and doesn't go into great detail. Obviously, 32 years later, we've got lore and lore and lore and lore all piled on top of all this. And things have been retconned and changed a little bit to make them either make more sense or to make them more palatable, because or to make them more a product of their time, because everything like this is a product of its time, right? Like, this book was written in the mid-'80s by a guy living in the southern United Kingdom. I guess, is Nottingham? Yeah, I guess Nottingham would be considered the mid whatever. I don't know. I'd have to look at a map. How could you not know where Nottingham is? It's there somewhere. It's north of London, that way a bit. But regardless, so when you look at sort of the products of that time and what that was Thatcher's England, right? So that was a very different time. You're talking about a post punk rock, new wave. Right in the thick of the great British heavy metal of the late 70s and 80s. So you've got sort of that, like, second, they call it the second wave of great British heavy metal or whatever. It was like Iron Maiden and Priest and Saxon, all those bands that came out around that time. When you read this and you understand sort of what I talked about yesterday, the 3 H's. And that's not to say that they're the only 3 that influenced Rick Priestley on this work. Someone would have to talk to Rick Priestley and ask him, what books did you read as a kid that led you to write Warhammer 40,000? And I think that if he doesn't mention books by by Heinlein, books by Frank Herbert, books by Harry Harrison, but then there are other books too. So I'm that's by no means an exhaust. And obviously the 3 H's is then capped by the big M, who is Moorcock, right? So I feel like those 4 authors had probably the strongest impact on the evolution of the Warhammer lore. But also, you can talk about artistic influences like Rodney Matthews. You can talk about all kinds of political influences, cultural influences like 2000 AD comic books. Judge Dredd, huge influence on Games Workshop IP development at the time, for sure. 2000 AD, the ABC Warriors. People I probably never even heard of because I didn't live in the UK at that time, so I didn't live there. I didn't grow up in that. I sort of refer to myself as I wrote an essay once called I was a teenage Anglophile, because I realized that my sort of teenage years spent in the 80s was spent a lot fetishizing and glorifying aspects of English culture that I wasn't really, that I was more ancillarily attached to because I live in a colony. I live in Canada. So I don't know how interesting any of this is to you, but for me, it almost seemed natural that I would get into a game like Warhammer because of my upbringing as a loyal member of the Empire, I guess. I don't know, a loyal subject of the Empire, because my grandparents were definitely royalists. My grandparents have actually dined with the Queen. I mean, dined with the Queen in a giant room full of like 1,000 other people who were dining with the Queen. But that happened. My grandfather is a veteran of World War II, fighting for the Allies, just to confirm that. So I grew up, my background is Scottish, and Irish and French Canadian, sort of, not really. But so I grew up in a very anglicized environment. I was baptized Anglican, so this way I don't die, right? When I die, at least I go to heaven. White Jesus over here will take me up to heaven, and that's just hedging my bets because I don't know what's out there. Yeah, I'm just being silly today. It's Tuesday. It's silly day. My daughter would say that. It's Tuesday, Daddy. It's silly day. So let's talk about. I'm not going to read all this. You should go and it's not hard to find a PDF of the Rogue Trader book if you don't have a physical copy. I try not to open my physical copy too much because it is 30-something years old, and the binding was never good to begin with, and it's only gotten worse. So I realized when I opened it up to the page with the Inquisition on it today, and I can see the stitching binding. I'm like, we'll just close up the old Rogue Trader book and pull out the PDF, because the binding on the PDF will never ever dry up and fall apart on you. I want to get down to, here we go, the Inquisition. So this I will read because, as you can see on my table, and as you can see by the description of the video, I'm going to be painting my Inquisitor today for you. And that is this model here. Now, this model came out, I did a little bit of research, and he came out in '88. So the sort of the midpoint, there's like a giant mold line there. Oh, that drives me nuts. Also reprinted. You know what? If someone can, I have to go to Warhammer World to buy it, or I have to pay someone to go and acquire it for me. I'd love to get a reproduction. I've seen the reproduction. My buddy Ash Barker has. He's got an original soft cover like mine, and I think he might even have an original hardcover, because people just give him stuff. He just gets free shit. So he has a copy of the reproduction as well, and I've looked through it and looked through it like doing like an A/B comparison with like an original printing and the reproduction beside it, and it's very good. The reproduction is a little dark, but that's to be expected because apparently they didn't have they reproduced it from a scan, from high resolution scans of the original. So you're basically a generation away from the original printing. So it was I have a feeling that those layouts that they may have had, because when this was printed offset in the old-fashioned ways, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know who's out there, but when you print something like that, having been trained as a printer, I understand what goes into the layouts for this sort of old stuff where you're dealing with goldenrod, you're making films, you're making sure that your color sections are color and your black and white signatures are black and white. And anytime you have to insert a piece of color, like this little color logo here, even though it's in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff that its entire signature, which is sort of like although this wasn't necessarily printed in signatures. Sorry about that. Because that one little piece of color is there, that entire section, as it's printed, has to be printed on color offset in order just to get that one color there. So it can be printing back in the olden days before we had things like digital printers was a major investment in time and money to get it done. So I'm just going to read because this was the bit of lore that initially really caught on to me, because at this point in my life, you're sort of becoming aware of like the larger ideas of, and let's just say like Inquisitors are James Bond, right? So I don't know. But so I'll just read it. So Inquisitors are special agents of the Imperium, free-roaming troubleshooters, bound by no laws or authority. Every Inquisitor is empowered to investigate any possible or potential threat to the future of humanity, whether that threat comes in the form of political aggression, administrative inefficiency, or genetic deviation. How fantastic an introduction to the Inquisition is that? That really tells you everything you need to know, that these guys are like James Bonds, just floating around the galaxy, enacting their own agendas and ostensibly looking after the Imperium. They're safeguarding. There are no bounds to the Inquisitor's field of operation. Alien plots, mutation, corruption, crime, and incompetence all come under his jurisdiction. Inquisitors usually operate alone, but where necessary, they will requisition, hire, or purchase men and material to help with their duty. Many Inquisitors maintain a small personal staff to aid them in their work. They may also request the cooperation of the Adeptus Terra in matters where their special forces are required. So Adeptus Terra basically overlooks. Adeptus Terra is essentially the High Lords of Terra. So that is my Inquisitor. He is an Inquisitor at large, I refer to him as. And as you can see up in the artwork here, this became this model. And this model is based on this artwork. This artwork would have probably most likely predated the sculpting of the miniature, but it's impossible that the miniature informed the art. I don't know. Someone would know. Someone may have known and forgot, but it is very much true to the art, except for the fact that this has always been referred to as a shotgun, but I've also heard this weapon referred to as a chainsword. And if you look at the guy in the artwork, it looks like he's kind of holding a chainsword. I have no idea. I assume it's a shotgun or something, and that he's got some digital lasers hidden on him, and maybe he's got a lightsaber hidden on his belt or something. I'm not even sure how I'm gonna build him within the game. You can see he's got some characteristics here. Essentially, he'll be built using the human advisor rules from Here We Go, from my Blood Axe Army list. But he'll also have a profile that'll exist outside of that for when I want to use him. And his retinue. So when we talk about many Inquisitors maintain a small personal staff. So my Inquisitor maintains a small personal staff. And if you saw me pulling them out of blisters yesterday, if you watched the show. And this was another thing that got added in. This wasn't in a blister, but my good buddy Michael Logan over there at Logan's Miniature Market was able to hook me up with an amble, and I'm super hyped about that. So I assembled him this morning while I was working on these Snotling bases. But I kind of like looking at these models. I'm like, well, who would be in the Inquisitor staff? Well, this guy's going to be my xenobiologist for sure, because he is definitely... let's go right overhead here so we can really see these. There we go. So this guy will be my xenobiologist, and he's a great... There's some really nice little details on these models. And while I was cleaning them and getting them ready for priming, I was looking at some of the great little details on him, and I almost cleaned this off his head, but he's got like a little like brain implant off here. And I initially thought it might have been a piece of flash, and I was about to like scrape it off, and then I took a second look, and I was like, oh no, he's got like a little implant up there. And then he's got his little calculator here, and what looks like a tiny, tiny pistol, and some other stuff. So this guy will be my xenobiologist, so he'll be one of my Inquisitor's henchmen or acolytes or whatever you want to call them. Do you have an old Zoat? I have fantasy Zoats. I don't have any 40k Zoats, Inquisitor. I have... Inquisitor Savak, welcome. We're talking about your profession today. So I have a fantasy Zoat that's actually in my Wood Elf army for 3rd edition. I don't have any 40k Zoats. I don't think I ever owned a 40k Zoat. even when they were Tyranid creatures, and my buddy was making a Tyranid army that I was painting for him, which ostensibly meant I kind of owned it because it lived at my place because it was being painted, and he would come over and play with it at my place. Even then, never owned a 40k Zoat. It'd be cool to get one. I do want to have, I call it like my dramatis personae, right? Like all these guys are sort of my dramatis personae for the human inhabitants of Logan's world. And I have some third-party models as well. If you know what Colony 87, there are a few Kickstarters where they did sort of some like old school Rogue Trader style civilians and models and things like that fit in. And Colony 87 would be one of them. And I'm trying to remember where the other one where I got my other guys from. But yeah. So yeah, any fantasy Zoats? Yes, I do have a fantasy Zoat. One of the most Eldar research sayings. Yes. So my Inquisitor is not... So the Inquisitor in this photo, I believe he's referred to as Inquisitor Obi-Wan Clouseau, which may be the most tongue-in-cheek, ridiculous sort of name you can possibly give to Inquisitor Obi-Wan Clouseau. Like you're pinning yourself down there to making sure that people understand what it is that you're putting forward here. My Inquisitor is actually named Kafka Dosadi, which is almost possibly more esoteric and tongue-in-cheek a reference than Obi-Wan Clouseau would be. Sorry, I'm just going to clean off. I hate when I prime a model, and after I finish priming the model, I find mold lines on it, and then you don't want to clean those mold lines because you're going to end up scraping the primer off. But I also just can't live with those mold lines. They gots to go. They gots to go! So I will reprime this guy once I clean these off. And if you ever wonder how I clean mold lines off a model, this is generally how I do it. I also will employ... I don't know why I didn't clean this model before I primed him. I must have been so excited to get him on a base or something. But yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll use a file occasionally, but I'm not going to use a file right now. But what I am going to do is I am going to reprime him. So this is some parchment paper I was using for dry brushing my snotling bases. You can see here. So some gray primer. It's very light gray primer. This is Vallejo gray primer, so I will add a drop of black primer. Darken it up. I'm not going to be able to color match the primer that's on him. That is Games Workshop Mechanicum Standard Gray. But I have faith in my abilities to not make it matter. If I'm able to... Ooh, that's almost... I could probably use a little bit more gray. So I'm just going to check the chat here for a second. Yeah, so Zoats, I do have a fantasy Zoat, which I bought a long time ago, and then painted last year. It sat in a bits box, half painted for ages, so I stripped it and repainted it. So I'll just throw some more primer up here, because those mold lines would have just driven me insane having to look at those, especially on a model of this caliber and this much. I want to say gravitas or provenance or something. I don't know. What can I say about this miniature? He's not the first Inquisitor model to be released. There was a Inquisitor. Oh, what's his name? Augustus, I believe, was the first Inquisitor to be released, and he's kind of half in and half out of power armor. That's fine. I'll just let that cure. Toss that. So, yes, my fantasy Zoat is an ally of my Wood Elves, because generally that's how Zoats made it into Warhammer 3rd Edition, was they were like forest defenders. So I'm just gonna get some brush cleaner here. I got a little bit of. I'm not totally abusive to my brushes where I just don't care about them. If I do have a good brush, I do like to keep it good. When you see me painting, you'll see just how fantastic my brushes are. By fantastic, I mean I make professional painters cry with the quality of my brushes. Like my favorite brush to use right now is literally half a brush, because the other half of it has worn away. This is my current like favorite brush to use, and it's even got like dried paint on it now. I don't know why, but you can see that like half the bristles have worn away. But look at that point on it. Great brush. So yeah, so let's just gonna switch back over here for a second and continue reading a little bit here. So the most common threat posed to humanity, and therefore the most common problem faced by the Inquisitor, is that of the Psyker. Ooh. The Inquisitor, this guy, must be on his guard, not only for the individual Psykers, who are mostly harmless, but for harmless but then used to fuel the Golden Throne. But for organizations, secret cults, and other so-called revolutionary groups working to protect and hide emergent psychers. Although such groups might start with good intentions, they always fall under the sway of the psychically attuned aliens, creatures that wish only to destroy or enslave mankind. Another great threat to humanity, which the Inquisition labors to expose, is that of mutation, the constant pollution of the human gene pool. Although most mutations are harmless, if the race is to develop into a new psychically aware creature envisioned by the Emperor, other sinister and potentially dangerous mutations must be destroyed. Mutations which affect psychers can produce creatures almost as great a threat as some of the psychically attuned aliens. So here you can see no real mention of chaos. There's sort of allusions towards chaos in the Rogue Trader lore. But that really sort of came later, especially with the Realm of Chaos books, which just delved right into the Realm of Chaos. At this point, you're still dealing with aliens being sort of the great psychic threat. And one of the things I love is that if the races develop into the new psychically aware creature envisioned by the Emperor, at this point, the Emperor was still talking. He was making edicts from his Golden Throne. He was still a corpse emperor. They don't really talk about how he became the corpse emperor at that point, just that he's really fucking old, and needs this Golden Throne to keep him alive because he's so old. And he needs to be fed 1,000 psychers a day because it's basically his own psychic power that's keeping him alive at this point. So I'll just read that last little bit here. His work through the galaxy has earned the Inquisitor the name of Witch Hunter, Torturer, and worse. Where necessary, he is both of these, and things more terrible. For any means justifies an end so vital and so endangered. And then here we have the profile. So you can see he's got fairly decent stats. This is somewhere between, this probably looks actually like minor hero stats. A major hero would be Weapon Skill Bliss Skill 6 with 3 wounds. And probably a higher initiative and 1 more attack. If you understood sort of how profile, like if you know how to make characters, because essentially when you don't build armies, you make characters in this game. You character create like you would in an RPG. When you understand how to make character, you can see. So here's some advanced points. So here's his base profile, and then you roll a d10 to see how many additional advanced points he gets, up to a maximum of 23. And you know what? Let's do it. I've got some dice here. Let's see if I can find a quick percentile. There we go. And some quick d6s. I'll use these orc d6s since they're readily available and on hand. Some random orc d6s that I just pulled out. So let's see. I'm going to roll a single d10 here to see how many advanced points he gets. 3. I rolled a 3, so I get 4d6 advance points. So not a lot. So this is this Inquisitor is a youngling. I'll roll these easy to look at dice. Well, those I believe are 1s, not 6s. These horrible orc dice. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I get 9 advance points. Great. Allocate points randomly as described in the personalities chapter of the combat rules. Man, when you look at, so one thing I was doing last night as I was lounging was I was reading the 9th edition 40k rulebook, not the lore, the actual rules section of the game. I've flipped through the PDF, but I actually got a hold of one of the little rule books that comes in the Command Edition, so the smaller size one is just the rules. And I got as far as, I got past the morale phase to the missions phase, or the mission section, so I got through all the phases. And it's just amazing how modern game mechanics are so refined. Like when you read that new 40k rulebook, I think someone put it to me best, and it may have been Ash who said it to me, because he had the rulebook before me, and he had the rulebook before they were available. And he said to me, he said reading the new rulebook is like reading a game written by a lawyer, because everything is so carefully spelled out and defined. And then after they give you like your 2 paragraphs of like, this is how this phase works, they then give you the bullet points summary of this is how this phase works. So there's very little ambiguity. There's very little question. The way the rules are laid out, they're logical. It goes through the beginning of the game, through the turn structure, to the end game, to the, so it lays out everything. And that's 30 years of game development for you kids. Really, when you look at a game like this, you're back and forth, trying to figure out, mechanics and rules, and there's a lot of ambiguity, and there's a lot of, questions and things like that. So I've got the painting thing laid out here. I'm going to open up my trusty rusty wet palette here and drop some dice on the floor, and I'm going to start painting this Inquisitor, because I think that is probably a good idea. So where am I going to start on this guy? A game for lawyers by lawyers. Well, you know what? That's almost a good thing. I think that we'll start with his boots. We'll start at the bottom down there. I'm going to give him black boots anyways, but what I'm going to actually use to make those black boots is this Reaper Master series called Dirty Gray, which I will then put on, and then I will then wash with some black ink. And we'll just start from the bottom, and we'll work our way up, I guess. So yeah, like it's probably for the best, especially with a game where you have so much mass appeal, like 40k, and 40k is really, it's the benchmark by which all other miniature tabletop war games are judged generally. You can't really argue that fact. I'll get out my wonderful half a brush here. What was that Monty Python song? Eric the Half a Bee. This is Eric the Half a Brush. So I'm going to throw this. This is some quick gray down here on his boots. And he's got spats on. Bustopher Jones in white spats. Bustopher Jones. He's not skin and bones. In fact, he's particularly round. Or large. Well, he is a bounder, a 26-pounder. If you know what that's from, you can score 1 fake internet point if you get my reference there, and you may or may not want to get my reference there. What else am I going to do with this gray? I have no idea how I'm going to paint this guy, other than I think I know I'm going to paint his hat. I'm going to paint his hat so it matches my hat. As silly as that sounds, and he's wearing some gloves. We'll make his gloves black too. We'll give him some of these. So yeah, the that's actually from Cats, and in case you were wondering, I was a fan of Cats before they made the new movie. The new movie's abysmal. My kid really liked Cats. It was fun to watch with her, and we started listening to the soundtrack like every day, and now I can pretty much sing along with the entire soundtrack to the play. So I know all the songs. The Rum Tum Tugger, the Pollicles, the Peaks and the Pollicles. It's a weird musical. If you ever get into the story of Cats, because it's based on T.S. Eliot poems, and people are pretty sure that he was high as a kite when he wrote most of these poems. I think even his wife sort of said, yeah, he was dipping into the whatever it was he was into. And you know what? I'm gonna do these baggage, all his little pouches and stuff. No, I think I want those to be leather. His belt here can be black though. We'll do that. And maybe these pants. Yeah, why not? Bustopher Jones in white spats. So he's going to be wearing white spats. Maybe we'll call him Inquisitor Bustopher Jones. So, interesting thing about some of these older miniatures is just how simple the detail on them can be. And I think that's great. Maybe I'll give him a blue jacket. Maybe I'll just paint him so he looks... I don't know. I didn't really come into this with a plan other than I'm going to paint his hat the way I want to paint his hat. He needs like a white t-shirt with like something on it. He needs like a... I don't know. I am going to grab one more color to put on here, which will be khaki, which I'm going to do the... Are you pro butthole or anti butthole recats? I took my daughter to go see it in the theater, and I didn't know which version we were watching, but I've seen the butthole cut, which is what you're referring to, which I think is on YouTube, and someone digitally added butthole, like cat buttholes to all of them, which is hilarious. So I guess you got to be pro butthole. That movie's kind of an abomination. There's very little redeeming about it, and there were some decisions that were made in the making of that movie that are bewildering, and I think that they made them because the idea was, well, this is a musical, but we're making it into a movie, so we have to do things that are movie-like, which means we have to use computer graphics. Cats has always been known for, like, great makeup, you know, utilitarian cat costumes, but they were also, like, those cat costumes are pretty fantastic. If you can get a hold of the 1996 version that they shot for DVD, that they basically shot a version of the stage play, and they brought in, like, the best cats from around the world. So all the productions around the world sent their best actors to, I think they shot it in Spain. And they shot it on, like, a sound stage, and it's presented like you would go see the musical, but it's all like the best people doing it. They got like the original girl for Grisabella, the original guy who played Old Deuteronomy. The guy who plays Rum Tum Tugger is probably the quintessential and the best version of Rum Tum Tugger I've ever seen. And it's just the best version of Cats. And now we're talking about Cats as opposed to talking about Rogue Trader. So that's pretty much how the Eternal Chronicles goes. If you're new here, that's usually what ends up happening, is that I end up picking a subject and then veering off as quick as I can off of that subject onto random things like Cats, the musical, which I saw here in Toronto in 1986 for the first time. So yeah, I would have been a young, spry teenager at that point. Oh no, not even maybe. I think I would have been in grade 6 or grade 7. So 12 or 13 years old. There you go. Now you know how old I am. He's got his white spats, and I'm going to use the same color on his hat. Just a little bit of water there to thin that out. Because that is a Vallejo color khaki. This khaki is a Vallejo color, and they tend to be very, very pigment rich. So you can water them down. And then when I do this hat, I'll do it in 2 nice little even coats over here. Bustopher Jones in white spats. In the halls of St. James. Oh, good Lord. That's going to be in my earworm for the rest of the day. Unless I blast it out with some metal later on. Because then I'll just have metal stuck in my head, which is much better. My current band du jour that I'm listening to is, well, there's two groups that I've gotten into recently. One because a guy on the subway had a really cool t-shirt, and I was like, dude, I really like your shirt. And he's like, start telling me about the band. And I'm like, band? I just like your t-shirt. And he's like, yeah, it's a band called Sleep. And I go, oh, I gathered that. So Sleep, who, when he told me, he was like, yeah, they're like what Black Sabbath would have become. And I'm like, oh, they just down-tune all their instruments really low? Because that's... So when I listened to it and I heard what he was talking, I was like, okay, so Sleep is interesting. There's an album of theirs called Jerusalem, which I would highly recommend. It's only got 6 songs on it, and all 6 of those songs are called Jerusalem, but they're all different. Then they've got another album called Dope Smoker, which is like one 45-minute long song. But if you're into like, I don't know how to describe it. Well, if you're into like Black Sabbath, like early Black Sabbath, but like Black Sabbath greatest hits Black Sabbath, if you're into that, then I'd recommend Sleep. Another band along those same lines is a band called Black Pyramid, and I got into them because they did an album that was all based on Elric, the Elric saga, Elric of Melnibone. So I listened to that album. I think it was called The Eternal Champions or something. Anyways, and then I listened to their other albums. So there are 2 bands for you. Is that Obi-Wan? Well, I mean, in theory, that's kind of what they jokingly refer to him as. He's never outright called this photo, but there is a reference to an Obi-Wan Clouseau. My version of this Inquisitor, his name is actually Kafka Dosadi, but that may be... but yeah, that's what this model was sort of referred to as because that's such a joke name. Yes, Obi-Wan Clouseau. So silly. So, all right. So I'm going to throw some wash up on him here. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with this jacket. I'm thinking like a nice blue, almost like a denim blue, which I would use this like ashen blue for his coat. But I'm not sure. Let's throw some wash up on him and see how we feel after that. So I'm going to go with dark tone for the stuff that that's going to end up being black, which is the stuff that I painted with that dirty gray. So we'll do his shoes. And again, lay it on thick so that it collects into those crevasses there. Around the back here, get his heels, and then up above the legs here, paint those in. And then here, would it help you guys if I put him on a painting handle? Probably. Let's grab a painting handle then. I own like 8 painting handles, and yet I look over here and I can't see a single one that doesn't have a miniature already stuck on it. Here we go. Good old Citadel painting handle. So, here's a question for chat. When did you guys get into 40K, and what was it that sort of brought you into the game? For me, it was my buddy Nico coming home with a blister of Space Pirates and splitting the blister with me, and then going and basically then like investing all of my 13-year-old self's money into miniatures. Things that were actually really, like, we couldn't find Space Marines in blisters. And that's probably because, and I think I've said this before on stream, but I'll say it again. At my friendly local gaming store where we went to buy it, the husband of the lady who worked in the miniature upstairs had a Space Marine army. And so any Space Marines that came into the store were never even made it out onto the floor. We did get the RTB01 box set eventually, but to start with, like, Space Marines were next to impossible to find. Like, metal Space Marines were next to impossible to find. So we bought all the other stuff, which means, like, Inquisitors and Space Pirates and Squats and Eldar and Assassins. Alrighty. So, right. Now I'm going to throw down some of this light tone onto the areas that I painted with the khaki, and then we'll let that dry. I've still got that song in my head. Oh, it's the worst. The worst of the worst. I guess it could be worse. I could, my kid has discovered Hannah Montana on Disney Plus, and so she is now thoroughly within the Miley Cyrus fandom. Oh, in as much as an 8-year-old kid can be. But she's a huge fan of Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus. And so we've actually been listening to Miley Cyrus records, albums, whatever you want to call them, songs, and her new one, which is sounds like a cross between Dolly Parton and Stevie Nicks. Is how I would describe current day Miley Cyrus. She's an excellent singer. I mean, she's got an amazingly unique voice, and but it's not. And I explained to my daughter, I said, well, it's not my music, but I'm glad you like it, and I'm glad you found something that you enjoy, because that's more important than your dad forcing you to listen to The Clash over and over again, and to try and, like, purge the bad music out of your head. Let's see what we got going on in the chat down here. All right. Oh, boy. It's good to see someone else streaming some RT. Yes, thank you, the Epic Narrator 40K. I am streaming some RT. If you watched my October streams last month, all I did was paint Rogue Trader era orcs. Things like this, which is, if you watched my stream last month, this guy is Decommissar. Still need to finish his base and finish the little grot that's on the back here. But here I'll pull out another thing that I'm pretty pleased with so far, although that banner is just going to fly off, so we'll just... but that is my Orc Dreadnought. With the original banner, that banner is from the Book of the Astronomicon. That is actually the original Orc Dreadnought banner when they first released the model. That banner was in White Dwarf, that you could cut out or photocopy for personal use. Permission granted for personal use. And what else do I got that's Rogue Trader like hundreds and hundreds of 40 or 50 orc models that I painted last month. And once I finish the bases on them and finish off a little bit of the detailing on them, then I'm going to get in there and what do we call it? Take some photographs. I did some photos. I did a photo shoot over the weekend and took pictures of Eldar and Space Marines, which I'm hopefully going to get up onto my website, gallery, theeternalchronicles.ca. I'll hopefully get that up onto the gallery at some point this week. I was going to do it today. I did a little bit of updating on the website, just updating sort of the links to this YouTube channel to try and get that sorted out. People say websites are passé. Well, I'm not a millennial, so I guess to me a website is still, something. Oh, yeah, there you go. Thanks. Just some nice orcs there. Those orcs look great. Thanks. Marcus722 says, looks fantastic. Thank you very much. And Epic Narrator, I am streaming Rogue Trader Orcs at the moment as well. Awesome. I will have to check out your channel. But you mainly Twitch. I save YouTube for my narrative stuff. And I assume you're saying streams on special occasions. Yeah, so I chose YouTube because Twitch seemed... I don't know. Everyone was telling me I should be streaming on Twitch, and then I'll probably get more engagement and more viewers streaming on Twitch. My narratives exactly. I'm literally the exact same as you, Epic Narrator. I'm doing the reason I'm painting all this Rogue Trader stuff is because I want to do some Rogue Trader narrative gaming. I want to bring friends over and be the be the game master, and put them through some scenarios and build some narrative storytelling using Rogue Trader stuff. Because that's where my hobby started off. Like, I entered into the hobby with Rogue Trader. So yeah, if you allow links, I can show you my Instagram. I think you can post a link in the chat. I don't know. Try it. See what happens. I have no idea. That may be something that I have to turn on to allow links. I don't know. But I'm not looking at Twitch, just to say. So I did make sure that I got my channel and stuff, so I have like the name in case I do want to switch over to Twitch. Because what I know that a lot of people do is that they stream on Twitch and then upload to YouTube afterwards. I'm trying to stream on YouTube and just keep it all here, keep it all in one place. But it's clear that YouTube is not really... I don't think a lot of people, when they go to YouTube, they're looking for streams. I think that's changing now with some of the video gamers coming onto YouTube. But I've also been told that I should be streaming on Facebook, because I can I can do Facebook Live, and I can do Facebook Live right from the Eternal Chronicles Facebook account. So that may help with engagement and sort of get me out here. I will tell you this. Yesterday's stream, and so far, fingers crossed, today's stream are two of my highest engagement ones. And I'm not gonna say that having 9 people watching me is some great achievement, but having 9 people watching me, which is what YouTube is currently telling me, oh, it just went down to 8. Someone switched it off. Someone doesn't give a shit about what I'm talking about right now. So that's sort of... but yesterday's video has gotten the most views out of any of my videos. And so I don't know. I'm just going to tough it out on YouTube and see how it goes. I'm painting this stuff right now. I'm doing these live streams right now because the plan is that in 2021, when the world is maybe not as insane as it is right now in terms of whatever's going on in the world, and if you're south of the border, I'm in Canada, so if you're south of the border in the United States, good luck today. I hope things go great for you. I hope that all the doomsayers and the madness that sort of has engulfed your country for the last 6 to 8 months. Well, let's be fair. It's decades that you've had these issues, and a lot of this is coming home to roost now. Go pure white. I'm just gonna. I might wash this black stuff again because it's still looking a little gray, and I may throw another bit of wash on there. But that's got to dry first, so that's why I'm babbling and not painting. I could paint some grots for you. I could show you how I'm doing these bases. So, or we can talk about more Rogue Trader. So, I don't know if you watched my stream, Epic Narrator, yesterday. But I opened up about 20 vintage Rogue Trader blisters on my stream and extracted the sweet, sweet nectar within. And by sweet, sweet nectar, I mean all the miniatures. So I've been... I'm going to zoom out ever so slightly. I said zoom out, not zoom in. And then I can just lay this whole thing down here. Oh, man. So this is what I did last night and a little bit this morning, was I cleaned all these guys. So I cleaned all the flash off them, glued them onto their bases, and then filled their bases in with plasticine, so the slaughtas. So this is what I'm painting this month. This will be my project for the month. Hopefully I'm going to paint each model individually. With my orcs, I was really assembly lining because I was painting. I painted 20 models at once with the orcs to get sort of the bulk of the boys with bolters, my basic troops done, and then did little bits here and there with that. I'm still plugging away on painting grots, Gretchen, space goblins, whatever you want to call them. This guy's a space goblin. This guy's for sure a space goblin. It says so right on his base tab. And this guy is actually one of the initial, like the very first dozen or so models that were released for 40K. This guy is one of them. And I have another one that was one of them. Is it Worldburner? Is it you? Or it might be one of... Anyways, all these models that I opened up yesterday were all from some pretty early Rogue Trader blisters. And just give me 1 second here, and I'll grab the bag. Oh, because I was gonna throw these all out, and then I realized, like, well, maybe I'll just keep them for now, because this is a giant stack. This is all the blisters I opened yesterday. So, yeah, a little bit, quite the deck of cards here. These were all, as of yesterday, up until yesterday, these were all sealed blisters, and I cracked them all open on stream. So go back and watch my my show from yesterday if you want to watch me. Oh no, they're no longer a collectible. You've taken them out of their original packaging. That's right. I'm a miniature collector, but I'm a miniature painter. Like I'm a painter above collector. If I was a collector above painter, I'd probably consider leaving some of those in blisters. That's not to say I don't have a few blisters that I've had in my collection for a while that I'm not opening just because I'm scared to. I have one blister that I'm just terrified to open. It's already A, falling apart, and B, the models in it are fairly rare. Exactly. Who cares? Paint them. So, and that's just it. So that's why I cracked open all these Rogue Trader blisters, was because this was something that I've wanted to do for years and have always been doing other projects. And then late, sort of last year, I started getting into repainting all my old fantasy orcs. So my Orc and Goblin army for fantasy, which I started in 4th edition, I went back and stripped a whole lot of those guys and repainted them. And I still have, like, bins like this full of models waiting to be sorted and repainted. And I can just reach into here and let's see if I can grab a random orc that I painted like 30 years ago. Oh no, that's here's a random orc that my kid painted. So when I stripped the models, I had duplicates of several. And so my kid ended up with some of the duplicates. And it's funny because she's become really snobby now about it. She doesn't want to paint plastic models, and I'm like, well, no, you should paint plastic miniatures because A, most miniatures are plastic, and B, you're just learning, right? Like, so, oh, I only want to paint metal miniatures, Daddy. You told me metals are the best miniatures. Yeah, I can strip them, but it's fun. So, I might ask, what is the best game system to play Rogue Trader? Rogue Trader is the best game system to play Rogue Trader. If you want the authentic experience, this is the game you need to play. So the PDF that I've got sitting here on my screen, you can grab the Rogue Trader PDF is not hard to find. So I would definitely recommend grabbing that and having a read through the PDF. Let's go up to the... We can go up to look at... Oh, God, these are amazing. So, okay, so here, this Inquisitor here is Inquisitor Augustus, and that is the first official Inquisitor model that Games Workshop released. The rest of these guys are some Space Marines, which... oh, and here's that guy. The guy who's standing just to the side of the Inquisitor with his big old hair and his bolter. A couple of Marines. And then we've got some Eldar here. I've got this orc. Mine, the spikes on his head on mine are really worn down. I've got most of these Eldar models. I don't have any Slan, and I never did. I never owned any Slan. And then these are some really cool conversions of some Dark Angels, and this is a early Bob Naismith model. And then we've got an Imperial Battle Droid. And then the Zoats that you're asking about. So there's an Inquisitor with a couple of Space Marines and some more, and another Dreadnought and a Marine Medic. And this is the games for the game. Organizing troops. Coherency. 2-inch coherency, which has been basically in the game since the beginning. Turn sequence. That looks familiar, doesn't it? Movement, shooting, hand-to-hand, reserves. Well, reserves are now basically right before the movement phase, because you have a command phase now. And then the psionic phase has been moved around. It used to be right after the movement phase was the psionic phase, or then it was moved between shooting and hand-to-hand. And then the rallying, which is essentially the morale. So the core turn structure of the game of 40K is still pretty much the same. The same thing with like difficult, like moving over terrain. A lot of these rules. Oh, look at this. Brilliant. All these orcs getting their faces blown open. Just fantastic stuff. Yeah, if you want to play Rogue Trader, play some Rogue Trader. Get yourself a copy of the if you can find. So we were talking about the number of ways you can get this. You could buy a used copy, which right now on eBay would probably, even for a soft cover like this, would probably run you a decent amount of money, even in horrible condition. You can, the Warhammer World sells reproductions of the hardcover, or you can just download the PDF and go to a print shop and have them print you up and spiral bind one. I would probably recommend you go the way that is the most legal. I don't know what sort of rules there are, laws there are about printing material that's technically been out of print for 30 years. But whatever, doesn't matter. If you got an iPad, most people play off. When I go out to play, or when I was going out to play back before all this insanity happened and locked us all in our homes. I rarely carried books around with me. I just bring my iPad, and on my iPad I have all the 40K PDFs I would need, which some may have been acquired legitimately, and some may have fallen off the back of a truck. I don't know. So let's see. She did Dark Angels before they were green. Yep. Artwork in the Rogue Trader is the best. It's cracked now compared to that. Yeah, and I've talked about that. So on Saturday mornings, I've been doing sort of an art show, because I'm a huge fan of art. No, that sounds really pompous and pretentious, but I have a lot of art books and stuff like that. My mother is a professional artist, so I was raised in art galleries, raised in sort of the arts community in the city I live in. So I've always had sort of an appreciation, and I feel like I've got her critical eye. And obviously, I love to paint miniatures, so I consider myself a bit of an artist in that respect too. I can't draw for shit. I can't, unless you're asking me to like paint a miniature. That's basically where my artistic talent begins and ends. Let's go back, and while I discuss this, I will continue to paint, because that wash is pretty much dry now, except that I am going to double up on the black wash. I may even, dare I say, let's do that. There we go. Do some contrast. Woo, contrast. And if you're wondering, I use about 7 different brands of paint, so I'm not married to any one particular brand. Right now, my favorite paint range is... What the hell is that? My favorite paint range are the Reaper Master Series, the Reaper High Density paints. Essentially this brand, MSP, which is produced by Reaper. I love their paints, but I have Army Painter, Citadel, Privateer Press, 3 or 4 different Vallejo sub-brands, and then some like random like secret weapon washes and things like that. So I use whatever works. So I'm going to take some of this contrast. This is Black Templar contrast, because I want these boots to be quite black. So I'm just going to throw that over top there. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so modern fantasy art is, for the most part, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be really rude about it, and I'm just going to come out and say it, most of it is commercial garbage. Modern fantasy tropes are everything that's wrong with fantasy, and I'm going to lay the blame. I would like to blame like Blizzard and World of Warcraft. I think that there is something to be said. Sorry. For the manga/anime influence on Western fantasy, because Japanese, the idea of what they've done with Western fantasy is their interpretation of Western fantasy. So when we talk about elves with those like daggery pointy ears and stuff like that, it's like from Record of Lotus Wars, which was I think late 80s, early 90s anime from Japan, and that's where I first remember seeing, and it was very much based on the fantasy tropes, Western fantasy, as seen through sort of that Eastern lens, right? And then that came back over here in sort of the big anime fandom and really influenced art styles here. I'm not saying GW is influenced in that way, but I'm saying here's the best contemporary example I will give you. Look at the new Hero Quest. Look at the artwork in the new Hero Quest, and it is generic and bland and derivative, and it all looks very disparate, like it's been pulled from different places, and Hasbro has hired a marketing team to mash it together, so that Hero Quest, their republishing of Hero Quest, has a visual style that is unique, but it's not. It's just tripe, right? Tau aren't Gundams at all. I'm working on some articles that I've been writing for something else, and it just happens to be sort of adjacent to this. But I said that in that when I was talking to someone, I said Tau, the beginning of the end of Grimdark in 40K began with the Tau Codex in 3rd edition. If you look at that codex, there is a significant move towards softening a lot of the aspects of 40K. I think there's a piece of artwork in there that has like imperial dignitaries meeting and talking to Sod Manga Mate. I lived in Japan for 7 years, bloody sick of it. I married a Japanese woman, so my kid's half Japanese. I've been to Japan 8 or 9 times, so I spent a lot of time over there as well. So we should. There's something. Yeah, it's an interesting country. Culturally different and fascinating at the same time, and I have a lot of respect for anyone who could be there, because I was only ever there as a tourist and as a family guest. But anyone who would live there and make a living there, tons of respect to you, because they have a really profoundly different work ethic and just regular ethic than we do here. So I'm gonna paint his spats. So, and I'm not making any sort of judgment one way or the other in terms of what's better. It's obviously been successful to them, and I don't know. That's an entire subject for another time. But yeah, Japan is a very interesting country. Beautiful over there. I love it. But like I said, I've only ever been there as a tourist / family guest sort of thing. I couldn't imagine making a living over there. It's got to be challenging. So, this Inquisitor Spats. Yeah, like I said, that's my experience is as a tourist. All right, well, thanks for stopping in there, the Epic Narrator 40K. I will check out your your Twitch stuff, because it sounds like you and I are on the same page in terms of what we feel like we're doing with our hobby these days. So I look forward to checking it out. Thanks for dropping by, and I'm glad that. Sorry, I hope you can see what I'm doing here. So when I lose my train of thought, it means that I'm concentrating on actually painting. There's a real skill, an art, a lost art. I guess it's not a lost art, but there's definitely one of the things that I've found painting on stream for the last few months is trying to keep up the engagement conversationally, while at the same time putting the required attention to detail into the actual painting that I'm doing. Pretty much only do RT in second edition. Well, that was, like I said, I came into the game with Rogue Trader, but really started building armies and playing with second edition. I think that's probably what most people my age, probably their experience would be. It's funny when I meet people who are like, "Oh, I got into 40K with." It's like, "Oh, I've been playing 40K for years. I got into 40K with 6th edition." And I'm like, "So you've been playing for 10 years, maybe?" That's awesome. And so, how long have you been playing? 30 years, 30-ish years. I wouldn't say I've been playing 40K, but it's certainly been part of my life. All right. So there's the spats. And I'll have to hit those with a little bit more highlighting later on. But I'm going to do that hat now. No, let's paint that damn hat. So. I like Gundam and have several Japanese friends. Been there a couple times, but couldn't live there. 6'5". Yeah, I think we've discussed that. Yeah, it's not a country built for large people. I think I talked about being in the Tokyo Dome for a Wrestle Kingdom show, and literally being squeezed into my seat between the armrests, and then having bruises on my hips from sitting in those seats for the entirety of the show. And then there's everyone. I think everyone who goes to Japan has stories about Western size differences on things. I mean, even the first time I flew over there, we flew over on Japan Airlines, and their economy seats are built for a much different sized frame. So, and that's even on their airplanes and even on their trains. Everywhere you go, it's almost hard to get a sense of scale over there, because everything is built at a different size. And it's something that I noticed. So here in Toronto, where I live, we have the CN Tower, which up until a decade ago was the world's tallest freestanding structure. It's 553 meters tall. And in Japan, they built, it's called the Sky Tree, and I think the Sky Tree is 200 meters taller than the CN Tower, but it's really hard to get a sense of the scale of it. It looks so much smaller, and even getting up into it, you feel like it feels smaller. And I was like, there's no way that this building is taller than the CN Tower. But then I went and looked online, and yeah, it is taller than the CN Tower, but it certainly doesn't feel it that way. shade down this hat a bit. Oops. There we go. And then a little bit more of the linen white that I'm using. Catch the front there, catch the tip there. Yeah, I like that hat. Whoops. Totally painting off screen there. All right. I've run out of things to talk about. I can talk about Gundams. I almost brought some of my Gundams upstairs from my storage locker downstairs to talk about. Because they are really enjoyable to build. And I think I built my first one. Well, I built my first one back in like the 90s. I had an F91 Gundam kit from back then. That was like brand new at the time, but now it's like an ancient antique kit. And then I got back into it a few years ago, and built a Sananju Stein, and then I built a whole bunch of Zaku's. I have built more Zaku's. Oh my god. Because I love Zaku's. I love Mono Eyes. I love the look of the Zaku. I probably love Zaku's for the same like genetic deficiency in me that makes me love orcs, makes me love Zaku's, right? You could play Ash in his new game with your Gundam. I actually built a little force of Zaku's, and there's a Goof in there, and I think there's a Rick Dom in there, and a Zaku 1, and then a bunch of Zaku 2s. I built a little squad for his Gamma Wolves game that I never did finish. I mean, I built the models, but I didn't paint them. So they're all built, but they're built like a Gundam. They're not built like a game piece. So, all right. So there we go. We got some spats, we got some shoes, we got some hat. I'm going to finish the hat with, pardon my brush in my mouth. My favorite Gundam type series was Macross Saga. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't necessarily call that a Gundam. I guess I would call it like a manga series or a mecha. But yeah, I loved Macross. When I was a kid, I used to watch Robotech religiously when it was on TV. Like it was the one show that I could not miss every day. And what was great was that here in Toronto, they played, I think they only played 4 episodes a week, because I think there was one day in the week, it might have been Monday or it might have been Friday, where they had a different show on. But then they would replay all 4 of those episodes on Saturday morning. So if you missed any of them during the week, you could always tune in and catch up on Saturday. And that was sort of the original Macross Saga when it was brought over here. If you don't know, a company called Harmony Gold bought the North American rights to several anime series. Macross, Southern Cross, and what would become Southern Cross, but I think it was called something. It had some weird name, like, I don't know, Super Tank, whatever thing. And then the rope. So, and they put them together into one series. So they sort of tied these 3 separate series together. Mo Speedo was the 3rd one, which became sort of the invasion of the Robotech Masters, and very, very much different. Would be the word for it in terms of what was sort of established with Macross. But it's interesting how they did it. But anyway, so Harmony Gold owned the rights to it. to do the English versions, and then those rights have sort of floated back and forth. And I don't think they have the rights. So I don't think Robotech technically is a thing anymore. I know that Palladium Games, who makes Rifts and Heroes Unlimited, and made a Robotech RPG. I know that there is a Macross RPG for Savage Worlds. There's a Macross sort of setting for it. Yeah. Oh, I love that stuff. Rick Hunter and Lynn Minmay and Roy Fokker and Max Sterling and what was Lisa something. Who was the... I keep calling her the Admiral's daughter, but I don't think she is actually an Admiral's daughter, but it doesn't matter. All right, so there we go. They got the gloves. Maybe we'll put some flesh on his... Oh, you know what we'll do? We'll wash. I'm going to take some of my soft tone. The soft velvet tones. Someone has the rights. Palladium just tried to do a miniature game and had to stop because of... Well, that was years ago. The... Oh, Palladium just tried to do a... So there was a Macross Robotech Tactics, which was a Kickstarter, which is now, I think, taught in school. It's used as like case law for why, for like the pitfalls and follies of having a overfunded Kickstarter without a real roadmap towards fulfillment. Because that, if you read, I'm going to do any research today. This is the one thing I would recommend you do. Do a deep dive on what happened with Macross Tactics, because it is a tremendous shit show. What happened with that Kickstarter, and how a lot of people got screwed out of ever getting like their second wave stuff. Most people never got second wave stuff. Some people didn't even get first wave stuff. They were taking... I'm just going to open up this Black Templar contrast again. They were... Because I'm going to paint the gun. They were taking like sealed sets of the game to sell at cons because they needed the promotional, and they were basically telling their backers, oh, well, the reason we're not getting you your stuff right now is because we need to take it to the con, and you need to understand that like we have to, and it's like, well, we paid for all this product. Anyways, if you want to have like a 2 minutes of rage sort of situation going on, just go and read some of the accounts of people trying to get their Kickstarter fulfilled, because it's a real shit show. I don't know what. I guess it's a shotgun, but it's a cool gun. It's unlike anything else in 40K. I would say it's like a Xenos gun, because that's probably what he probably would have no qualms at all about using Xenotech. I'm gonna work on that leather, so I'm gonna grab my leather brown from Army Painter here. I got mine off Amazon. Yeah, you could find like the core game. The Wave 1 stuff is out there. There's tons of it out there because they made all the Wave stuff. It was the Wave 2 stuff. They essentially, the money that they had earmarked for Wave 2 went into retooling the stuff for Wave 1, because they went to a manufacturer in China who promised them, yeah, no problem, we can totally make your models and not an issue. And then when they actually sent the stuff over, they were like, oh, we can't do this. So they had to like go out to tender again. And apparently they lost a lot of masters and prototyping, and like they lost a lot of money on the fact that this Chinese company basically promised them the moon, and then as soon as they were tasked with delivering the moon, was like, oh, we know nothing about the moon. We can't do anything like that. And that again just shows that when something like that gets overfunded, and it was incredibly well funded because a lot of people love Robotech. A lot of people sort of grew up on that. So to sort of this is weird. He's got a belt back here. And then the belt just sort of like disappears at the front of his coat. Maybe his belt goes in and then goes across here. You know what? I'm going to paint this belt this way. This will only satisfy my OCD, because I need to know where that belt goes. Because literally there's a belt here with all his kit hanging off it. And then you get around to here and all of a sudden, oh, no belt. There's no belt here. How is this stuff hanging? Oh, you know what? What's that? It does, yeah. So it like, his belt. What a weird. That's sci-fi. What are you gonna do, right? Lisa. No. Well, she was only Lisa Hunter after she married Rick Hunter. What was her name before? Anyways. Let's get out some strong tone here. So yeah, I've been in like gaming stores recently, and they still have copies of like the Robotech core game sitting on their shelf. So you can still find the stuff out there. I was strongly considering picking up some of those models to do some Gamma Wolf stuff with, but then I decided I'd use high grade or high HG scale, which is the 1/144 scale Gundams. I bought a bunch of Zaku's and some Zaku 2s, a Zaku 1 with the sniper rifle, the Dom, the like Dom Truppen Dom, which is like the sort of the heavy weapons Dom, and a Goof Custom from my favorite Gundam series, which is the MS-8 team, which is the ground team. The bad guy in that drives around in a custom Goof, and it's awesome because he's got this giant chain gun mounted on his arm and this giant like heat sword thing. What should we do with that shirt? And that jacket too. I need to figure that out. It could just be like a white undershirt, like he's wearing a, you know, because it looks like it's supposed to, should be. White may be the best way to go with that. And by white, I mean I'll start off white and then make it white. All right, and then under here, and then I could put any color contrast over that I want, but I don't know. He's got a little necklace on too. I guess that'd be his inquisitorial necklace. There we go. Sorry, I'm just gonna check. I just gotta check something here for a second. Oh, there we go. Oh, and back. Sorry, I'm just playing with my lighting now because it just seems a little washed out. All right. Get some flesh for him. So this is golden skin. What am I looking for here? Golden highlight. Fair. Where's my golden shadow? Sorry, I'm just looking for a paint here that I am not seeing. This is golden skin. This is the midpoint I'm looking for. The shadow. Well, here it is. So, right now when I'm painting skin, I'm using the Reaper Master Series Triad, which is Golden Shadow, Golden Skin, and Golden Highlight. These three work really well together. They give you a nice golden skin, I guess would be the thing to say. Yeah. With that golden skin. Just a little bit of water. It's because, what does Duncan Rhodes say? 2 thin coats? Couldn't agree less. Haha! 1 thick coat. Just slap it on there. Lisa Hayes was her name before she married Rick. Yes, that's it. And then Admiral Global. Yeah, that was Captain Global. That was a great series, man. And it was one of those things. Is like as a kid, I mean, I didn't know at the time that I first saw it. I had no idea that it was a Japanese cartoon. I think the only other Japanese cartoon I had seen was, well, over here it was called G-Force. In Japan it was called Gatchaman. And I used to watch that. G-Force was like my favorite cartoon as a kid. As like a really young kid. And also Astro Boy. So Atom. In Japan they call him Atom. The Mighty Atom. But, I mean, to me, they were just cartoons. But Robotech was special because you had characters that, you know, weren't just the Scooby-Doo gang and the Mystery Machine, right? Like, these are, like, fleshed out, real feeling. There it is. There we go. Some flesh on them. And then I'm going to a little bit of that golden skin, not bright skin, golden skin. And I'm just kind of like mixing the golden skin in with the golden shadow a little bit. And I'll drop that over here. And you'll kind of see his face starting to appear from underneath all this. Cheekbones, chin. Can't really see what's going on with his mouth there, but and then again with the cheekbones. Ear, tip of his nose, and the bottom lip here. And I'm actually going to throw some wash on that. I think I'm going to throw some not Agrax Earthshade, some Reichland Flesh Shade, just a little bit. I'll just water it down a tiny bit. So by water it down, I mean I'll just make sure that my brush is decently wetted, and because this will make it quite red. You're gonna see in a second here, and I don't really want to do too much. I just kind of want to add some tone and some shadow in there, and there we go, and then around like that. There we go. Let's do his Van Dyke. That's not a goatee, it's a Van Dyke because it incorporates a mustache. If you call this a goatee, you are incorrect, sir. A goatee is just the chin. If you have a mustache attached to it, it is a Van Dyke. And I will fight anyone Who dares challenge me on that? Good times. So I'm going to take a little bit of this. I'm sort of using paint that I have sitting on my palette here. So this is some of the linen white with a tiny little bit of that dirty gray to just sort of help me pick out his mustache. And then down around for the bottom part. Just make sure we get defining everything nicely. And then this is supposed to be Inquisitor Dosadi as a younger man, and by younger I mean he presents as younger. He's actually well over almost 200 years old at this point. Thanks to that Juvenat treatment, he spent 100 years as an acolyte to an Inquisitor Lord, and basically was the chief interrogator for this Inquisitor Lord. Very, very powerful Inquisitor. And then was promoted to be an Inquisitor himself after about 100 years of service to the Inquisition. He was promoted to be an Inquisitor. So I'm going to grab some of this wash here, and then I'm just going to very, very gently wash this mustache and beard. Very gently, this dark. Because what I want to do is I kind of want to pick out the detailings. Sorry, I'm going to need a little bit more gray here to go underneath his chin. There we go. Let's a little bit more wash underneath here. Add some shadow. And then over here. There we go. And then just up under there. And up under the nose. And then I'm going to flip them right upside down here. You might not be able to, oh no, you'll be able to see. And I'm just going to throw a little bit underneath the mustache above his upper lip there, because I do want to create some shadow there. And then I'm going to take the exact same wash, and now I'm going to wash those sunglasses before I even apply any paint over top to them. And the reason why I'm doing this is, again, because I'm creating the shadows, and then I can put the other part above it. I can put the paint on top of this black, but I want to help to pick out the detailing. And that's one thing that wash is really good for, is that it will help you define where things are on the model, because sometimes it's hard to see even with just the naked eye. All right, I'm liking that. I'm liking that so far. And in case you're wondering who Inquisitor Kafka Dosadi is, he's an Inquisitor that I first created. If you remember back in, so long ago, it was like what year? 2001? 2000-ish? Games Workshop came out with a game called Inquisitor, written by Gav Thorpe. It was a 54mm scale game, and it greatly expanded on the lore of the Inquisition and made me like I was so happy when that game came out, only because of the lore and stuff in it. And I made some models. So this is, he's in pieces and he's in rough shape because he was in a bits box for a while, unfortunately. I didn't care for him the way I should have. But this is Inquisitor Kafka Dosadi from the Inquisitor game, and he is based on a whole bunch of bits. Inquisitor Eisenhorn for sort of this upper part, and the cloak. The legs here are from the other Inquisitor, Inquisitor Covenant, I believe his name was. And then there's just some randomness on his back and things like that. I think there was actually something here. He had a staff or something on his back. And then here's his sword, which I believe is actually a Space Marine Force sword that I cut down or something. But anyways, this is the first Inquisitor Kafka Dosadi. There have been a few. The first one wasn't 54 millimeter. There's a few that are in 28 millimeter. And I just feel like he's not my avatar in the game, but in a way he is. Like if I was a PC, if I was a player character, or if I was going to have a player character in Rogue Trader, it would be this guy, because he's just such a cool model. So I got to figure out that coat. I kind of want to do it blue. And I need something to break up all the grays and beiges and browns. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe blue is not the right color. You could do it like a duster and just do it like gray. I mean, I just don't want to do any more grays on this guy. I'm going to go blue. Like I said, I'm going to use this ashen blue. It was sunny out a little while ago, but now it's looking overcast out there. And we are closing in. It's going to be almost 2 o'clock. I'm going to probably end the stream around that. So let's just try this blue. This is an ashen blue, so this is actually a color I use to highlight black with. Jean jackets with wool lining. Dude, you don't have to talk to me about jean jackets. I own a jean jacket. I own a jean jacket. Yeah. Don't tell me about jean jackets. I'll tell you about jean jackets. Yeah, man, jean jackets with wool lining. Huh. I actually went to go put on my winter coat the other day. And by the other day, I mean yesterday. And it's like, this is a winter coat I bought last year. And it's like wearing a sleeping bag now. Because I am so considerably, I weigh considerably less than I did this time last year. So unfortunately, my brand new winter coat is too big for me. Oh, I guess it's probably a good problem to have. Most of my clothing is too big for me. I guess it's not a bad problem to have. Yeah. Got his big high collar here. It's funny how this sort of became like the prototypical idea of an Inquisitor when we think about it. It's like a guy with a hat in a trench coat, because he is basically like a secret policeman, right? He's like and then when you get into, if you start reading the lore in Lost in the Damned, where it talks about the Ordus, Ordo Malleus, and then it sort of talks about the Grey Knights, and then it talks about things that have been just completely written out of the lore, like the Illuminati and the Star Children are completely written out of the 40k lore now. But go look those up. If you want to know what those are, go look it up. Let's just say that the Emperor, I mean, he's been around a long time, right? He's probably got some kids out there, right? His kids probably have kids out there, right? Yeah, so that's the sensei, what they called them. I'm in the Seattle area. Can you guess the weather? It probably looks a lot like it does right now, because I'm literally looking outside and it's foggy. Yeah, I can imagine what the Pacific Northwest looks like right now. All So that's going to need to be darkened up, but that won't be hard. And then the inside, we'll just boop, 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 boop. All right, now I'm going to mix up some wash for this. Because I'm actually going to use a tiny, like a drop of blue ink, and then probably some strong tone to make like a dirty, ruddy sort of blue. So here's the blue tone that I'll use, and I'm literally just going to use like a tiny, little bead of it. And then if I could open it up more, I'd show you my palette, but there's the little bead of blue ink. And then I'm going to drop a bigger bead of this strong tone, which is like a dark brown. Boop, boop. Over top of it. Stir that. And then we'll sort of see, yeah, that's what we want. That little tiny bit of brown in there, blue in there. All right. And then I'm gonna start the back underneath here just to see how it goes on and go, yep, that's pretty much what I want. So we're gonna wash over the whole thing. Do, 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 do. Isn't that weird how his belt like disappears into his coat and then appears on the other side? Must be one of those tricks of the Inquisition, those damn Inquisitors and their tricky jackets. You damn Inquisitors and your tricky jackets. I wonder who sculpted this model. I wonder if it was Kev Adams. It feels something. I don't know. I should try and. Shouldn't be too hard to figure it out, or to discover who it was. I like this little arrow here. All right. So we'll let that dry. And I will be able to finish him probably tomorrow, because we're closing in on 2 o'clock here, so I'm going to have to... It isn't the whole Pac Northwest. Most of Washington is a high desert. Yeah. Well, it's because you're on the coast, right? So, and you're at the bottom of a mountain range. It's like Vancouver. Vancouver's basically where the mountains... Like, Vancouver itself is sort of built on an island, and then the mainland is south of that, which is all very, very flat. And it's all the way flat down to, like, basically to the border. New Westminster. New Westminster, and what's the other one? There's another, like, suburb. It's where the... Burnaby? I think that's where the airport is. Anyways, the airport is south of the city. And the city is almost right on the U.S. border. It's just north of the U.S. border, so it's not that far from there. You think this goes about Bob Naismith? Thanks, Joshua Page. You are probably correct. I know that Bob was doing a lot of stuff back then. In fact, a lot of these models are Naismith, and like a lot of those Marines that I opened up yesterday are his. So yeah, so that's where we're gonna leave it off today, I think. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out for the last 2 hours watching the stream. I'm pretty excited to be embarking on this second stage of my Rogue Trader project, which, as you can see, has a great deal of... I'm going to drop this and they're all going to fly everywhere, and then you guys are going to laugh. A great deal of models to paint here to get my humans done, because this is my opposing force to my orcs, so that my orcs will have someone to beat on. And I can't rely on anyone else I know to just like magically paint or have a Rogue Trader army lying around. If you do, that's awesome. If you want to play some Rogue Trader games, awesome. But this way I can actually build my little narrative stories, make my little scenario campaigns, and have people over to play with my models in my games. And the third phase is actually going to be building a Rogue Trader-ish table. So I want to build some Rogue Trader-ish era style terrain, which means like yogurt containers for towers, and balls of styrofoam with toothpicks stuck in them, painted red and green, so that they're like Death World plants. I sort of want to go through the old Rogue Trader style terrain with like the lichen and stuff like that, and have a table that looks... doesn't have to be period accurate, but I want something that feels right. So yeah, so thanks for watching. Until tomorrow, I'll be back here, same channel, same time, noon o'clock. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. I'll be painting some more. I'll be finishing off my Inquisitor and probably starting on his valet. His valet being a robot. So this is his personal... This is Mr. Butlatron, who is my Inquisitor's personal robot / bodyguard / valet / the only thing in the galaxy he trusts, because it's a computer. Oh, it's a thinking machine. Those are verboten. Those are heresy. He's not opposed to a little heresy to get the job done, right? So, yeah, so thanks for watching. I'm going to call it a day today and go and do the rest of my day. And I will see you guys on the Flippity Flop, which is tomorrow for Hump Day. You guys have an election. Those of you down in the United States have a day of days today. And like I said at the top of the hour, I wish you luck. And hopefully... when I'm here tomorrow, I'm not talking about all the fires. Hopefully I'm not talking about fires tomorrow. Hopefully I'm not talking about cities in flames tomorrow. Yeah. Because, you know, I think it's what they say. Every time the United States gets sick, Canada gets a cold. Like, Canada gets the sniffles, because we are your largest trading partner. So we definitely feel it anytime anything down there happens. The South Park election is on. That's right. You got a choice between a douche and a turd. I'm not gonna make a prediction. I'm not going to make a pick. I think that both your options are shitty options, and good luck. But the world of miniature gaming is above such mortal concerns, because all we do is just paint little toy soldiers, and that's our day. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm Christian for the Eternal Chronicles, signing off. Peace out. Have a good one.